Here's the Real Picture Show. And now here's our host, Pat Fuller.
Our show offers you something that no other shopping show has to offer. Let me say that one more time.
You wanted to give your prizes here and that you were here for that great cause of anti-bullying. And there's no way that I can stand here and take all of that from you.
The 1994 syndicated version of The Price is Right is a bone of contention of some of those in the game show community. Some like the show for what it is, and some detest it for being hardly anything like the daytime counterpart. Gone was the bright set, Janice, Holly, Kathleen, Rod Roddy, and of course Bob Barker. Instead, we got a slick black set, 3 new beauties, Burton Richardson, and a new being game shows in Doug Davidson. Personally, I think the new Price is Right is good for what it is. A quicker paced half-hour version that still had some of the same charm of the daytime version, with Doug Davidson being more playful with the staff than Bob ever was, and, oh yeah, contestants who don't know how to play cliffhangers.
How much do you think that is?
I'm going to go with $55.
$55? I can see the audience is really happy about that. $55. What, you wanted a bit higher than $55? Lower. All right. Is that alarm clock $55? We're now going to see how far you're off by. All right, Hans, get ready. Call the paramedics, will you, Lisa? Here we're yodeling up the mountain. Okay. $10 there. She's at least off by. $15. All right, Nadine. It looks like he's slowing down some. Yes, indeed. It looks like he's going to stop. Oh, my goodness.
But why was this version of the show so short-lived? It's easy to explain why the syndicated version 9 years prior left us after one season. The market was glutted with game shows, and the nighttime Price is Right was shuttered into post-midnight slots and couldn't get any footing anywhere. So a great show got shafted due to bad scheduling, but a still good show gets only 16 weeks? It's time to figure out why. Here are the top 5 reasons why the new Price is Right failed. Number 5. The new cast. By the time 1994 hit, Bob, Rod, Janice, and the rest of the beauties were already ingrained in pop culture. So if a new show going out with a whole new cast, it felt like a tough road ahead. Unfortunately, the only 2 people out of the new cast that the audience even knew about was the announcer Burton Richardson and the host Doug Davidson. The models were complete unknowns at this time, thus making the separation between the well-known daytime version and the new syndicated version as wide as the Grand Canyon. It was these unfamiliar faces that made people think that this version wasn't worth their half hour of watching. For this version, that was the least of their problems, though. As a matter of fact, the other 4 were more damning problems. Now, let's get to number 4 on the list. Pointlessly changing pricing games. While most of the games were on the show were not dissimilar from the daytime counterpart, quite a few of them were made to be vastly different. One of the biggest changes was made to Plinko. Instead of the middle slot being worth the big money, it's now a 0, and the 2 slots that used to be zeros are now worth $5,000 each. Also, the 2 outermost sections usually have the least amount of money. Now that's where the rest of the money is at $2,500 and $1,000 respectively. I like that they beefed up the amounts of the money, but now the board looks completely disjointed. Another big change was made to the clock game. Instead of the physical clock, the clock was now a Chiron clock, so they could have the bigger price displays on screen. If the British version could make a monitor clock that could be seen physically on the set, why not this one? Heck, the old clock game set could still be used, since most of the on-screen graphics were Chiron as well. There are many others, but those 2 were the main ones that stuck out. I'll talk more about The Price Was Right later on, but we need to talk about another person as to why the show failed.
It's the new Price is Right! Here's the host of the new Price is Right, Doug Davidson!
I personally like Doug Davidson as a game show host. I thought he did a really good job with the show, especially being a last-minute replacement for Mark Kretzky, who decided to bow out at the last minute for some odd reason. But the public thought otherwise. I kind of compare this to Drew's first half season when he was trying to test out the waters and adjusting from Who's Line The Power of 10 to The Price is Right. Doug's transition was a lot harder, having not done a game show before, but coming from The Young and the Restless, a dramatic show, he had the usual transitional overacting of being a game show host, so you see a lot of the bad TV trope game show host moments you see with Doug. However, he was really good with contestant interviews, so that kind of evened that detractor out, but not by much. I also like his interactions with some of the staff around the set, getting them some exposure.
I have a crisp $100 bill I'm going to give you right now for doing absolutely nothing. Right here we have... Phil, I'm doing a show.
I gave you $500. You have to give her $500. That's how it goes.
No, it's okay.
You gotta give her $500.
I was going to take the models out to lunch, Phil. All right, Roland, here's $500.
Also, some hilarious interactions with an Enterprise phone and William Shatner.
It's for you, Doug. It's Captain Kirk.
Captain Kirk, hello, Bill. Yeah, Doug Davidson. Yeah, we're doing a show here. No, as far as I'm concerned, there is only one real captain of the Enterprise. Yeah. Okay. No, I watched T.J. Hooker. Best police show on TV. Yes, sir.
But on a whole, he was just there. Like I said, I love him as a game show host, but I'm in the minority role. But then again, I'm the same guy who thinks the 1990 version of The Joker's Wild is a great show, even if the only similarities between the old version and the new version is a slot machine.
The Joker's Wild is a game of definition.
Moving on. Number 2, the new format.
Burton, who's the first contestant? Avenel Simon. Come on down. You're the first contestant on the new Price is Right.
The elimination of Contestants Row did the show no favors at all. People loved watching the contestants bid on minimal items when they were shown off to the contestants, and not only that, most funny, i.e. dumb moments came from the one bids, so to see that go was a loss. Another disconnect is the change from the big wheel to the Price was Right in about 20 shows. Nobody knew what to think of it and felt more like it should have been a variant of Now or Then instead of being the Showcase Showdown. What The Price Was Right pertained to is they show a classic commercial clip and the contestants must bid on what the price was of the item being shown back in that certain time period. It just felt like a big disconnect when we had the big wheel for the past 18 years in daytime. If they would have just done the big wheel all throughout, this probably wouldn't have been seen as a problem, and plus it would have saved them money from having to lease out all the old commercials. But what really threw people off was the new way the showcases were done. Instead of an actual bid on the showcase, the contestants had to play the range game in order to lock in a bid. Not only that, the in-between commercial pick of the range is kinda lame too. It makes the range go from almost impossible at $2,000 to almost easy at $10,000. This makes me think about the UK Price is Right. When it debuted in 1995, it was the perfect half-hour version that anyone could have wanted. One bids, recognizable games, the big wheel, and a showcase around one simple thing: bidding. I've always loved Bruce Forsyth as a host. He was the real, as the Iron Sheik would say. But even with the show's numerous faults that the US version had in 1994, it really wasn't the number one reason why the show was so short-lived. Number 1, the OJ Simpson trial. In June of 1994, OJ Simpson was fleeing in a Ford Bronco from the murder scene of his former wife Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Lyle Goldman. The chase on the highway made headlines and breaking news all over television and on cable news. The trial started in October of 1984 with wall-to-wall coverage on all the networks, preempting everything in sight that wasn't one of the big four networks at the time. This also affected talk shows that debuted in 1994 and the revamped Family Feud with Richard Dawson coming back as host. A lot of shows, including The New Price is Right, couldn't get traction to find an audience because of everything that was being broadcast about OJ. Thus, shows would go unseen in most markets, especially those in the East Coast, with the trial being on the West Coast. Thus, live coverage of the jury being sworn in and all the pre-trial coverage would preempt everything before 8 p.m. Therefore, price would be preempted to late night or even overnight slots couldn't gain ground no matter what. The show would be dropped by most markets, including its own syndicated Chris Kraft production stations. Thus, the show would be canceled in January of 1995. OJ Simpson, your biggest reason why the new Price is Right failed. I'm Robert Seidelman. I'll see you next time.